Once again, this is going to be a little bit of a tiny bit of a heavier topic, okay? If you are scared and or easily saddened to the point where it will ruin your day or something, to talk about things like CSA and or PDF files and or child abuse and or domestic violence and or child pregnancy and or child marriage, this is not the segment for you. It's going to be a little bit heavier. I'm going to keep the mood a bit lighter, but I just want to let you know, because this is going to be quite the segment. It's going to be a bit of a longer segment, and we're going to be going over what I like to call conservative family values. Once again, just to be sure, if you're not sure, we're not going to get graphic, okay? So we're not going to be doing any dramatic readings of somebody being abused. That's not happening. Well, we're just going to be bringing up the topic and then and going over it. We're just going to acknowledge that it happened and spend a moment reflecting on that. But that's that's the extent of that, just so you know. All right, are we good to go? Give me a yeehaw if you're ready. Boy, I love water. Sad yeehaw? Yeehaw, brother. All right. All right, listen. I've been sitting on this segment for a little while, okay? I've been sitting on this segment for a bit. I didn't know exactly when or where to drop it, but it seems like the time has come to me for when would be a good time to make a video like this. Now, what do I mean? We're in a very big state of flux in our country when it comes to culture, when it comes to how we view the world, how we view each other through a political lens. So I thought that this was going to be important. Especially what spurred this on specifically was the way in which the conservatives have decided to take mainstream talk about their political opponents, specifically the left, and turn that into probably some of the grossest hit pieces, slug matches, accusations, and things along those lines, to malign, slander, bring like violence or hatred towards people on the left. So I decided, if this is what they were going to do, if this is how they were going to decide to act, that I decided, you know what, I'm not like one of those oh no, boo hoo, we gotta play above the belt sort of like lefties, dog. That's not going to happen. That's not me. I'm not going to sit here and roll over as these types of people would like to just say whatever they want. So if you want to start talking, if you want to start bringing things up that are nasty, all right, I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. So it's time to get dirty. And the dirt that we're going to be digging through is the absolute state of decay that is the soul of conservatism in this country. What we're going to be talking about today is conservative family values. Now, the right love to position themselves, and Republicans specifically love to position themselves as the family values party. They are the party that cares about the family, the good old nuclear family. They care about putting families together and keeping them together. They care about all that type of stuff, right? Or as they'd like to position themselves as. I'm going to proposition something to you right now. I'm going to proposition that not only are they not the party of family values, I'm going to say that they are the party bringing about the most amount of suffering for children, women, and families across the country. And they do so willingly and happily for their own political, economic, and social gain. But first, I want to get something out of the way. All right? I want to get something out of the way, which is I don't like the PDF file jacketing. Typically, that's not something that I would like to engage in. That's not something that I would really like to be a part of. But the problem is that when people have to play by the rules, and conservatives, and when you have a two-player game, both people have to agree to play by a certain rule set. And if there's one person who decides that they would like to push the boundaries of how that works, well, guess what? Everything gets expanded. Thankfully, the conservatives don't seem to be the type of people on like a nationwide level to think too far ahead about their actions and what consequences those have. So I think it's finally time to show them some consequences for the actions that they decide to take. And so let's talk about how valid it is for them to say that they are the party of conservative values. And I think the best place to start would be polarization. One really big thing that conservatives love to push through has been socially has been how the left has gone crazy. You'll see conservatives talk about this 24/7 about how the left has gone too far this time. The left, they're just too wacky. Everybody was perfectly fine with them until they decided to take one step too far, and that's where everybody went against them because they give them an inch, they take a mile. First it's like, oh, we just want to marry each other, and then they're transing everyone's genders, which is an incredible leap that conservatives have been running with ever since they knew about people who aren't straight white men. Ever since they've known that those people exist, they've decided to run with things along those lines. Say the satanic panic, banning a bunch of movies, books, art that they don't like. I mean, I know a lot of people who are older lived through the time where Pokemon was considered demon devil magic because they're pocket demon, pocket demon. The devil is walking among us in your in your kid's pocket or some garbage like that, right? Yeah, Among Us. So true. Let's talk about polarization, because this country is getting more polarized, but I'm going to tell you now it's not the left's fault. This is a study that was done by Pew Research. Polarization in today's Congress has roots back decades. So the Republicans have been radicalizing themselves by making up stories, by making up falsehoods, and telling themselves to it. And those things have been reverberating back and forth in their little echo chambers, making themselves think that things are worse than they actually are, and actively bringing themselves to the brink when it comes to radicalization. And the left has literally nothing to do with it. The left hasn't changed much since, as this graph shows, 1992. 1992. There's 0.06 movement to the left when it comes to the Senate, and 0.07 movement to the left when it comes to the House. These are not big movements in 30 years, okay? They're not. This is a 30-year time scale. This is not huge movement. But what's happened to the left? But what's happened to the right? The right has shot to the right when it comes to conservatism. Look at that graph. Both of them moving almost a quarter of an entire point, and over a quarter of an entire point. Here, this is an insane radicalization, and once again, radicalization in polarization, radicalization when it comes to Congress, it doesn't start in Congress. It lags behind society. So the Republicans, their base, are way to the right of Republicans in office, typically. And depending on where you go, they are pretty far to the right of Republicans in office. It lags behind because, once again, society changes, and then the politicians come in to match that change, and then they come in and start to act in that certain way. But I gotta tell you, it's not the left's issue. It's not the left's fault when it comes to polarization. I wish the left was further left. I wish the left was more polarized. I wish the left was nastier. I wish what I want, truly, all right, my biggest thing here is I want people like Biden, like Pelosi, like everybody to be standing on soapboxes and doing exactly what the right is doing, okay? I want them to be calling names. I want them to bring out a big list, all right? Because don't worry, we got a list. And just read out names of like child sex crimes that Republicans have committed. That's what I want. All right. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you exactly why I believe that. All right. If they want to do it, if they want to call everybody PDF files, if they want to go with if they want to call everybody on the left who thinks that that it's fine with third graders knowing that gay people exist, if they want to call that grooming and child abuse, don't worry, buddy. I'll show you what child abuse looks like. All right. We can take a look at it, because all we need to do to see child abuse is hold up a mirror to the Republicans. And what we're going to see back is something truly disgusting. Prepare yourselves. Let's start here. Conservatives in general in this country don't care much about child abuse, nowhere near as much as they try to pretend that they do. And an actual level, when it comes to things to do against child abuse, to stop child abuse, they don't care much about it. Nowhere near as much as as left-leaning voters and people in the country do. And don't worry, this isn't just like me talking. There's a study done on it. It's super interesting. Let's take a look at this really quick. This is Research America, an alliance for discoveries in health, Americans' views on child abuse and neglect by party affiliation. Ooh, interesting, isn't it? It's exactly what we needed to think about how the Republicans on like a countrywide level think about child abuse. Would you look at this? So here at the top level, child abuse and neglect. The Dems and the Republicans hover about the same when it comes to like top issues. That's interesting. Let's go into something. Strong majority view child abuse as a public health problem. So do you think child abuse and neglect is a public health problem? 87% of Democrats say yes. 71%, less than 10, over 10 percentage points less of Republicans feel the same. 20% of Republicans say child abuse and neglect is not a public health issue in the United States. All right, then. Do you agree or disagree that child abuse and neglect is a problem in your local community? 25% Dems say yes. 39% say strongly agree. 39% say somewhat agree. 22% of Republicans say they disagree. And we'll talk about like when it comes to child abuse and Republican states where a lot of these Republicans live. We'll talk about that for a moment, okay? 22% say child abuse and neglect is just not an issue. Interesting how that works out. They care less about child abuse and neglect. They think that it's not really an issue. Do you know someone, friend or family, who experienced child abuse? Only 40% said yes. Over 51% just said no. Just no. They say that they haven't experienced, they don't know anybody who's experienced child abuse. 7 percentage points less than Democrats, interestingly. In your view, how much of a problem is child abuse in the country? 50% of Democrats say a huge, serious problem. For another 41% say moderate problem. Only 38% of Republicans, not even 40%,
this meme is very
say
real.
that it's not a serious problem. Huh. Interesting. And 14% said it's not a problem. Weird. Do you think other views on child neglect is a problem in terms of severity? Republicans, here once again, caring less about this issue than Democrats. How important is the increase in federal funding for research in child abuse? Less than 50% of Republicans say that it's very important for federal funding to research child abuse. Interesting how that all breaks down, isn't it? Interesting how that breaks down. So, these are really interesting numbers. Interesting. Oh man, that's interesting. It's interesting how Republicans consistently view child abuse as something that's not a real problem and that does not need to be taken as seriously as left-leaning voters do. It's weird how that works out, right? Do you think health professionals are... that one doesn't matter as much. How important is it for healthcare professionals to identify families at an elevated risk of child abuse? Democrats, 72% say it's very important to identify families that are prone to child abuse. Less than 60%, my bad, yeah, less than 60% of independents, which is also giga cringe. But 64% of Republicans do. Almost another 10 points down, again, from left-leaning voters when it comes to how serious this is. How do you think child abuse and neglect contributes to the following 1 through 5? 5, being not at all, 5 being a great deal. But sorry, with 1 being not at all, 5 being a great deal. Once again, Republicans on the latter half of that. It's interesting how that all works out. We've said for a long time that when it comes to Republicans, their authoritarian nature when it comes to child rearing, caring less about things when it comes to like mental, physical, and emotional abuse when it comes to kids, simply on the way that parenting works. can be a massive issue. And it's not just simply real. Conservatism. It's conservatism. It's a very specific sort of like religious fundamental conservatism where like kids are just kind of property. And so their abuse isn't really abuse. That's just like tough parenting or whatever. And that's strong and that's cool because you know how to really raise kids. But it seems like how that comes out is just the abuse is a little bit more is a little less cared about when it comes to those types of things. Let's talk about something as well. And so personally, I think like if you're the party of family values, that you should care. Don't you guys think that if you're the party of family values, that you should care the most out of anybody in the country? You let your family value. You should care the most out of anybody in the country about the prevention and the care and making sure as much as possible is taken to stop child abuse, right? It doesn't seem like that's true. Man, would you look at this? 3.7 million kids slipped back into poverty after the Biden child tax credit expired. 3.7 million kids. The amount of children exceeds many countries in this world that slipped into poverty in this country. And guess what? Not a single Republican voted to make sure that stays in place. Not one. And Joe Manchin made sure that it got expired as well. Not one Republican decided to hop on and say, "Oh, dude, extending this thing that drastically lowered child poverty from its high of like 21% down to like 7.6 and lowering again, and then back up. Look at this. Look at this jump from 11% to 17% when it ended. And that's 3.7 million kids. Just, who cares? Keeping kids out of poverty, apparently that's not a that's not a family values issue. Keeping kids out of poverty, that's not a family values issue, really. Interesting. Wild. And also this ideology leads to more abuse when it comes to women. Violence against women affects 35% of women worldwide. The need to combat violence against women is seemingly non-controversial, but so can electoral conservatism make women more vulnerable to violence? Employing data from 5,570 Brazilian municipalities, we find that conservatism in the electorate is associated with an adoption of fewer anti-violence against women policies. With data from nationally represented survey Brazilian representatives. Now, this one is just from Brazil, but let me tell you, conservatism and left and rightism around the country, around the world, follow similar beats. And we're just talking about conservatism generally. And so, yeah, 100%. This conservatism period leads to more violence against women and leads to far less violence against women policies to be put into place. They just don't care as much. Doesn't seem very pro family values, does it? So listen, they say they care a lot about women, like women's safety or whatever, especially when it comes to them hating on trans people. I've always put through that they don't really care about women. What they care about is using women's issues as like a cudgel to just hate on trans people, and they really don't. It really doesn't matter to them that much. Here's some more conservative talking heads. What did they say? GOP candidate sparked outrage by saying, if an assault is inevitable, you should just lay back and enjoy it. Wow, interesting. Oh man, that's so interesting. Wow, really? Hey man, just might as well have fun while you're there. It's like you're stuck in it's like you get locked into a bouncy house or something. He said it to his daughters too. Yes, he was talking about his daughters. He's like, having 3 daughters, I tell my daughters, if a rape is inevitable, you should just enjoy it. Just enjoy, just have fun while you're there, Tell them to go harder, Have a good time. Family values, people. Family values. In the 74th House District of Grand Rapids. Yeah, pull a freestyle. It's fun. His candidate needs a background check immediately. This isn't just a single candidate though. The entire Republican Party needs to be like taken and then shaken, turned inside out, shaken, and then once we realize that it's insalvable, throw it away, incinerate it. That's what needs to happen. It's not just one candidate. I'll tell you that much, okay? Because this comes from a long history of conservatives being against consent, period. We remember Matt Walsh when he reviewed the C is for Consent book, and he said that how it was disgusting because it was teaching children to like know about consent and be able to say no. Because the whole book was just about you don't owe anybody anything else. You don't owe your body to anybody else. Your body is yours and you do with it as you wish, and nobody owns your body. You should not be guilt tripped, forced, or anything else into giving your body, your touch, your, anything about you to other people. The decision of your body is yours. Matt Walsh hated that book because he said that it was disgusting to teach kids something along those lines. And he said he violates his children's consent all the time because they don't really deserve it. Because their body is not theirs, their body is his to do with as he wishes, which is very strange. But once again, it's not just one person. It comes from a long line of conservatives fighting against consent. Colorado Republicans are fighting to keep kids from learning about consent. This is recent, 2019. In a 10-hour-long committee hearing last month, some Colorado Republicans decided it was a good idea to argue against the idea of teaching kids about consent. The bill they were debating proposes a ban on abstinence-only sex education in schools. It also requires the subject of sexual consent to be included in the curriculum. 9 states and Washington, D.C. already include consent in their sex ed courses, which is wild because it's only, once again, let me remind you, there's 50 states in this country, only 9 require consent. Okay. Only 9 require consent, and Washington, D.C., which should be a state, but it's not really. Imagine debating consent. It's wild debating consent. Now, I think that it's important to teach kids consent. I think it's important to teach everybody consent. It's wildly important. Yeah, not even 20%. Yeah, I think it's wildly important. Here's why. Safe schools for teens, preventing sexual abuse of urban poor teens, proof of concept study, improving teachers, students' knowledge of skills and attitudes. The Safe Schools for Teens intervention increased awareness of reporting of child sexual abuse. The intervention also reduced dating violence, highlighted in the mindfulness-focused approach in the connection with systems, and strengthening is useful for addressing adolescent violence. Training teachers resulted in an increase in confidence in identifying CSA from 25% to 57%, and a decrease of apprehension of reporting, which is you not wanting to report, from 40% to 33%. A significant improvement in self-reporting knowledge on abuse, dating violence, and how to help friends, as well as adolescent impulses when it comes to emotional clarity. So this is just good. Once again, teaching kids about consent is vitally important to making sure that they are not abused. A lot of Republicans want to call this like child abuse or something. Teaching kids how to identify when they're being abused is child abuse. Once again, this is like saying teaching someone how to fight back against someone who's assaulting them is like child abuse or something. This is wild. This is like giving people pocket knives and pepper spray to protect themselves. Like saying that's child abuse. This is incredible. Teaching good consent to teach kids to know what their body is, to know what's wrong when someone, especially a grown adult, does something to them, to know that's wrong, to be able to identify it, to be able to stop it, and if they can't, to tell somebody. That's one of the strongest tools that we have to make sure that child abuse does not happen, especially CSA, to make sure that that doesn't happen. It's one of the strongest tools that we have of not only catching criminals, but stopping the crime from being committed in the first place. Now, you may be asking yourself then, if that's true, why would the conservatives be against that? Why would they be against something like that? It sounds like just W's all around. Does it not? Does it not? A simple class, you take it like a couple times and it dramatically reduces children's likelihood of being abused, taking advantage of, all of this type of stuff. It's interesting why they would be so strongly against that, not only in like Colorado but across the country. Once again, only 9 states adopt that. It's weird how that works out, isn't it? And a lot of those states, and none of those states are really like heavy conservative states. What is happening? Let's take a look at child marriage statistics. This is super interesting. Oh man, that's interesting. Nearly 300,000 children under the age of 18 were legally married in the US between 2000 and 2018. Disgusting, horrible indictment of this country. Truly gross. Yeah, maybe this is the conservative values that they're talking about. They're child brides. Interesting how that works. How many children are married between 2018 and 2000 and 2018? Take a look at some of these states. So what is this? Alabama, 9,000. Alaska, 800. Arizona, 8,000. Arkansas, 8,000. California is 23,000, which also is giga cringe. Texas, 41,000. Texas, 41,000 children below the age of 18 married off. 41,000. Nevada, 17,000. Florida, 17,000. Now let's take a look at the top states. Where does your state, hey guys, let's play a little game. Where does your state rank when it comes to child abuse and marrying them off? Where does your state rank? Let's see. Number 1, Nevada at 0.67%. So Nevada, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the like partisan composition of some of these states in the top 10. Let's just take the top 10, huh? Nevada, Idaho, Arkansas, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Wyoming, Utah, Alabama, West Virginia, and Mississippi. If you take a look at this really quick, you know what's really wild? What's really, really wild is that what? Nevada has a Dem governor, and they typically send Dems to the Senate. But Idaho, Arkansas, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Wyoming, Utah, Alabama, West Virginia, and Mississippi in the top 10, only one like at least statewide Democratic state, which is closer to like being on the swing state than anything else, resides in the top 10. Big Republican states here, huge Republican states. West Virginia, didn't West Virginia vote like 60 or 70? I think was it 70% for Donald Trump? It's wild how that works. And what they don't want to teach about consent, to teach kids what's wrong, what's wrong when an adult does something to their body. And also their states seem to be the biggest states when it comes to marrying off children. Interesting. Nearly all children married recently were 16 or 17, typically too young to leave the home, enter a domestic violence shelter, or file for divorce. Old enough to get married, not old enough to file for divorce. It's wild how that shit works. Most of the children were married off to men who were adults. Minor girl to adult man, 78% of the marriages, and minor girl to minor boy, 12%, minor boy to adult woman, 9%. So you're telling me these adult men who make sure that their states don't teach their kids what CSA is, what assault is, what it means, who to go to talk to if it's happening, and also most of the men who are marrying like 16, 17-year-olds are like grown adults? Wild. Who could see that coming? Not shocking, unfortunate. That's the bad part about the Republicans, is that none of this is shocking. None of it is shocking. I'm telling you, it's so not shocking that someone decided to put together a list about it. Someone decided to put together a freaking list. And it's clear that before we move on, I want to make sure. It's clear that Republican states are the ones that care less about these issues, that care less about abuse, that are more likely to allow adult men to marry literal children. But once again, I want to make sure that this isn't compartmentalized, that this isn't something that's just like one or the other. This isn't just like Republican pockets. Boy, let me tell you, I'm not joking when I say that this is the state of the Republican Party. This is who the Republicans are. This is how they decide to run their party, and they don't care. Like I said, somebody decided to put together a list of all of this type of stuff. Let's look at this in the daily costs. What is this? If you Google search CSA doers, CSA criminals, you will be hard pressed to find one example of an elected or well-known liberal who has abused children. But if you Google conservative CSA violators, you will find dozen. I've alphabeted an abridged list. Once again, this isn't even all of them. This is just an abridged list that someone decided to put together just to take a look at just a smidgen, just a handful, just a taste of what the conservatives have been up to and how a lot of them decide to treat children. We can just scroll through this like really quick. Republican Mayor Thomas Adams of Illinois charged with 11 counts of disseminating CP and 2 counts of possession of CP. Oh, nice. Cliff Bennett, 18, son of Arizona Republican State Senator Ken Bennett, pleaded guilty to assaulting 3 boys. Huh. Wild. In 11 to 15 bookmarks of their rectal areas. He had 11 to 15 bookmarks of their buttholes that he kept. Republican Councilman John Collins pleads guilty to CSA to 13 to 14-year-old girls. Huh. Family values, it seems. Republican benefactor for conservative Christian groups was charged with assault and allegedly paying a 15-year-old girl for sex. Huh. Wild. And it's still going, just so you know. You know what? While the credits roll for and you can just read through, you can pause if you're watching this, you can pause at any point in time. You can read all these, you can look them up. They're real. And while the credits scroll, I just want to talk about something really quick. When it comes to a lot of how conservative households roll and power, okay, most of the people who were mentioned on Jeffrey Epstein's flights, most of the people who are truly indicted for abusing children are not people who are left-wing. The people who allow children to be themselves, to allow them to have freedom, to allow them to be able to talk to people, to not have that authoritarian rule, like one person or 2 people control everything about this kid's life until they turn 18 and are able to be like a legal adult. And once again, just so you know, the credits are still rolling. That environment that Republicans would like to put a lot of kids in is rife with abuse. The power that they would like to enact over these people is rife with abuse. Same when it comes to animal abuse, much more strong when it comes to these groups of people. They allow it to happen. Remember Roy Moore, the man who was banned from an Alabama mall because he kept harassing 14-year-old girls, how he lost his re-election bid by 2 points? I think it was less than a point, right? It was less than a point. Because to a lot of people in these Republican states, being someone who hunts children to sexually exploit them is less bad than being a Democrat. And that's just how they roll. They let it fly. They let it go by. They let it just happen. They let it slide. Because what they care about more than protecting children is owning the libs and getting through their own political ideology paths. They're able to do this and they're able to get away with it because their constituents, for the most part, don't care. They are not the party of family values. And if you call this family values, I'd like to call the police. Oh, hey, look, we reached the end. Isn't that nice? Huh. Perfect timing. Let's move on. Let's go a little bit. Let's talk a little bit closer to the RNC, the establishment Republicans. What's this? Former Republican RNC aide sentenced to 12 years for requesting videos of babies. Yes, it's exactly what you think it is. This person who was pictured in Donald Trump's White House, who just like spent some time going around. He was an RNC aide who spoke at, just so you know, he spoke at pro-life rallies. There was a pro-life rally back when Donald Trump was president, and he said that we need to protect children, but he didn't mean protect children from like being killed. He wanted he didn't mean protect children from like abuse. He wanted to make sure that those babies were born because babies were his favorite. And I'm not hyperbolizing when I say that. Who called the sexual abuse of babies his absolute favorite, was sentenced to 12 years in prison for a receipt for CP. Weird. He had 162 videos of and over 50 images of CP on his phone in July 2021. He was 29. He was an online group with at least 18 members dedicated to trading CP and discussing CP, according to the Department of Justice. Wild work. Huh? Weird. This person worked as the digital director for the Joint Economic Committee in 2018 to 2019 and was the digital strategist for the Senate Republican Conference from 2019 to 2020. He's previously the senior designer for the RNC, who created their digital campaign ads. So this isn't just like some rando, okay? This isn't some like coffee boy. This is someone who was like in the thick of it. He was making their ads. He was the person who put together a lot of the stuff of the RNC. He was in there. This is a big person. This is Republican family values. Let's hit on an oldie. Every time we talk about Republican family values, I love to bring up this issue because it is one of the most disgusting, egregious examples. What happened in Wyoming? The Wyoming senator disclosed impromptu that he impregnated a 14-year-old girl when he was an adult. 14. So in their states, they want to pass laws that ban abortion. So once again, if we remember, most of the children who are being married off are to adult men. These adult men are in Congress making sure that not only this stays legal, but the kids aren't taught consent to make sure that they know what assault is. And when they're assaulted, they don't allow them to get abortions. And when the babies come to be, there are people in their ranks who will look for CP of them.
This meme is very real.
It all comes together in quite a weird way, doesn't it? It all comes together in quite an interesting web that the conservatives have woven themselves into, and then try to call the left the people who are groomers. But in this story, good old Anthony Bouchard, who's a Republican trying to unseat Liz Cheney. Remember, Liz Cheney is one of the only Republicans who voted to impeach Donald Trump. Liz Cheney was kicked off of committee assignments. Liz Cheney was ostracized in the Republican caucus because she decided to vote to indict Donald Trump on impeachment. All right. Yeah, it's Dick Cheney's daughter. She decided to stick by any semblance of morals that she has floating around her head and impeach Donald Trump because he was obviously did shit that's impeachable. Anthony Bouchard is running for the only Wyoming House seat, since their country is like the size of a medium-sized city. Since their state is the size of a medium-sized city, they're running for the only House seat. And guess what? In some polls, he's winning, because to these Republicans, impregnating a 14-year-old is less of an issue than not liking Donald Trump. And we covered this entire story. It goes even deeper than this. Not only did he groom her into like being in like a sexual situation with her, he impregnated her. He like told her not to get an abortion. Then after that, she had the baby, got depression, killed herself, and said it wasn't his fault. Got estranged with his own son, is not on good terms with him at all, then came out, and guess what? He made a Facebook video, said he'd do it all over again. And in some polls, he's winning. And he's not, and guess what? Liz Cheney, All Liz Cheney did was vote to impeach Donald Trump, and she's getting more hate, more vitriol than anything that this man put through. We are in the middle of a segment talking about Republican family values, and I'm very sorry if I hit anybody with some really heavy stuff. I'm sorry. Here, actually, let me put in the title. I'm sorry. Welcome, Raiders. Hello. Here, let me boop boop. There we go. Just to make sure. Sorry about that, everyone. But also for the people who are still sticking around, did Hannah treat you well tonight? Did Hannah treat you well? I'm sorry. I've been laser focused on this segment ever since we started. Yeah, hey, what's going on? Hope you guys are doing well. Absolutely reprehensible stuff. She did. I love that. We love that. Also drink water. I got you. Uh yeah. Don't put any TOS stuff in chat. Can you read that? Can you read that on screen? Like what's behind the bars? Treat us to some fucking prime. On screen, no. You have to click on it. Okay. All right. If you type anything even approximating TOS, you need to put that behind bars, or I will ban you personally. Okay. All right. And we continue. Also, if you want to hear the rest of this story specifically, we covered it on the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be up here. If you want to keep updated with how bad this is. But once again, all right, this isn't just one politician. Remember Matt Gaetz? The sex trafficking investigation that's closing in on Matt Gaetz. Remember the noose that's being tightened around his neck? The whole thing where he, allegedly paid a 17-year-old to have sex with him and his friends, also trafficked her across state lines from Georgia and Florida, and how that's all happening, and how he's been hiring the top sex crime defense lawyers in the country from New York, not even his state, trial lawyers to defend him, just like normal stuff that's going on, and how his business partner was using money he got from his state elected position to help fund flights and pay these girls what he said was college money and get a new car type money, but it was actually money that he gave him for sucking him and his friends' dicks. And then they realized that the girl was actually 17, told her off, and said that she was a very bad girl because for lying about her age, because it could get all of them in trouble, and then proceeded to hit her back up when he thought her birthday came around again to bring her back in to prostitute her out some more. Just normal stuff. And how that guy Joel Greenberg has been indicted on these crimes and has been working with been working with the feds to close in on people like Matt Gaetz, and how they tried to get Donald Trump to pardon him because they knew it was this shit's gonna close in around them. Weird. Also, this is just more of the statistics when it comes to men between the ages of 20 and 29 father 39% of the children born to teen moms age 15. Family values. And even with a Donald Trump endorsement, Donald Trump endorsed GOP Senate candidate suspends campaign after losing custody battle and abuse allegations. He beat his wife and kids and had to drop out of the race after lying about it. because he lost his custody battle because the judge saw through his lies. So that's where we get left off right now. This is the state of the party who wants to call you, if you're a left winger, a groomer. This is the party that wants to call you a PDF file. This is the party who says that you don't care about children. This is the party that says that you are bad for kids. This is the party. Every single time that Republicans would want to point the finger, they're always talking about themselves. What happens is that they know that they're wrong. It's kind of like, have you ever seen someone who just kind of lies, and they just lie without any like care about whether or not people find out whether they're lying or not? And when they do, they get mad at you for not like, they get mad at you for even finding out that they lied in the first place. You know, those types of people. These are the type of people that we're working with. It's very interesting, right? Because what they think is, like, this has been talked about a lot when it comes to like a lot of conservative thought, is that they believe in the cruel world fallacy, which is the idea that the world is cruel and evil and mean, and people will be evil and mean by default. And so because of that, you need to get ahead of the curve. They're going to lie, cheat, and steal. And so you just need to lie, cheat, and steal harder, better, stronger, faster than them. You need to do it before them. You need to be much louder than them. You need to be the one who points out everything, and it doesn't matter what you really do, because if you can get people to believe you first, you've already won. And when it comes to a lot of these debates, when you're explaining, you're losing. And so instead of explaining anything, they just brush off any issue that you will bring up, and they'll just accuse you of doing whatever with absolutely no evidence whatsoever, when they're the ones doing it, and they'll never bring up the fact that they're the ones who lead to most of the abuse when it comes to kids and families in this country, because they don't care. It's all a political gain to them. All these kids could be run in like CSA mills, and they wouldn't care as long as they could unseat a couple of Dems along the way. They are actual demons. All right. And so when I said earlier in this segment that what I want is for the Dems to play dirty, that's exactly what I want. I'm not really a Democrat. I don't like the Democrats. They're not very good people. But holy crap, if you look at who these people are based on the right and the left, there is no possible way with any fair reading that you can call the Dems the worst party for the country when Republicans do shit like this. So what I want is for them to get dirty. I still remember Michelle Obama saying, "When they go low, we go high." No, fuck that. What happened to the Dems under Obama? They got rattled. They got bodied, okay, because they didn't play the game. I don't want Democrats to play the game. I want them to own the game. I want them to be the ones who know the ins and outs, okay? I want them to be the speed runners of destroying the Republicans by in like the court of public opinion. I want these people. I want people to think when they look at a Republican, they see Harvey Weinstein. They see like Bill Cosby. They see like Jeffrey Epstein. I want them to look at the most vile, disgusting abuse case that you've ever seen. I want the worst among them to define them, because it does. This is not in any way, shape, or form a straw man of their position. They allow this to happen. This is their party, and I want them to be known for it. I want it to be plastered on them. I want them to be branded for all time. I want their name to be tainted to such a degree that they need to go in hiding, change their name, and be scared of hiding their face, because they should be in prison for the way that they allow this stuff to continue to fester in their party. It's disgusting. So I want Joe Biden to not go across the country and talk about, it would be really nice. It'd be really cool if we got the infrastructure bill through. I want him to go through and say that the Republican Party is the party of pedophile pedophile ring, child abusers who want to marry your daughter and fuck your baby son, and they'll laugh while they're doing it, and then say that and then say that like gay people are the real problem. That's what I want. You know what? Because it's true. Because it's true. Because it's true. I want every Dem to go around and I want them to read this list. All right. You see this list right here? This absolutely goddamn Star Wars opening monologue list of conservative crimes. This is what I want. Every single during a debate, during the talk time, I want the Democratic candidate to just be reading this. Just this list of indictments for why the Republican Party should be incinerated. This is disgusting. Truly. Republican councilman convicted after assaulting a 13-year-old girl. 37-year Republican mayor after assaulting an 8 and 10-year-old girl. Republican pastor whom George W. Bush commended in his 2004 presidential campaign surrendered to police